Well, as you may have heard, NASA is continuing its exploration of the moon, and there is a local Manitoba connection to it. The space agency will send a group of astronauts to land on the lunar surface for the first time in 50 years in 2027, when Artemis 3 will take a trip to the moon. And going up as well will be the CubeSat, which is being designed and built by a team from the University of Manitoba. U of M's STARLab is playing a big role in this groundbreaking technology and research. Phil Ferguson is the director of STARLab and also an associate professor of mechanical engineering at the U of M and joins me now via Zoom. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, Phil.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you.
First, tell me what this new mission is to the moon and what role STARLab is playing in this.
Yeah, so as you mentioned in your intro, one of the things that's really important right now for the Canadian Space Agency and other agencies around the world is to understand what makes up the moon, because the moon is going to be an important stepping stone as we eventually start to explore Mars with people. And so what we're doing is we will be building and flying Canada's first ever satellite to orbit the moon. It's a small CubeSat about the size of a carton of milk and a little dart that we're going to be throwing down to the surface of the moon that will measure what the soil is made up of. And for the first time ever, really get to see what's under that surface of soil in places of the moon that we're interested in exploring.
We're going to learn a little bit more about CubeSat here because that's very impressive. The way that you described it is it's the size of a milk carton. So how did STARLab, how did the University of Manitoba end up getting tapped for this?
Yeah, so we've partnered with Magellan Aerospace. We've been doing this ever since 2017, when we created the Industrial Research Chair in Satellite Engineering that I've been holding. And so my team at the university has been learning how to build small satellites very inexpensively and in a way that is accessible to communities and to governments and to other organizations because they're inexpensive and we can build them quickly. And so my students have built several CubeSats already. We launched our first one in 2023 that launched on a Falcon 9 rocket, eventually from the International Space Station. But now we're thrilled to be following that up with one that we're building with an Arctic community called ArcticSat, and now also this one to the moon. So we've built this capacity, and now the Canadian Space Agency has enough confidence in us that we can send this all the way to the moon.
How do you and your students feel about being a part of this trip to the moon?
It's an incredible honor. I mean, we've been working towards this for quite some time. The students are incredibly proud, and they should be, of their accomplishments. They're taking the kinds of electronics that we see in cell phones and everyday drones that people are using, and we're now finding ways to put those into space in a way that's reliable and improves access to space. So the students are thrilled about it. I mean, not too many people can put on their resume that they've built something that's gone around the moon, because really nobody in Canada has done that yet. So we're thrilled to be a part of it, and we're looking forward to the success.
So Phil, tell us a little bit more about CubeSat, because you described it's really small. I would picture a satellite being something big, something massive out there, but the way that you describe the size, it's the size of a milk carton, and you said that it's kind of inexpensive. So tell us a little bit more about CubeSat. I mean, this is groundbreaking technology, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And so companies around the world are starting to see the value in CubeSats. But for the first time ever in Canada, we're able to now send them to the moon. And so what makes CubeSats special is that they are a fraction of the cost of giant satellites. So these bigger satellites that you mentioned, the ones about the size of a car, they cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They take tens of years to build and study. And by the time we launch them, sometimes the technology is already obsolete. But with CubeSats, we can put groundbreaking technology in them. They cost less than usually a few $100,000 to put together. And that means that we can do them quickly and we can respond to needs much faster. And most importantly, this technology is accessible to students, accessible to companies, accessible to communities as well, so that we can respond to the needs of Canadians. And that, I think, is what's really transformational.
Phil, what's also really interesting is that you've actually incorporated some Indigenous knowledge in CubeSat. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So we're honored to be working with the Manitoba First Nations Educational Resource Center, and in particular with Rockford McKay, who's an Indigenous astronomer and knowledge keeper and storyteller. And one of the things that's interesting is that when we go into space, We rely on stars to navigate, especially when we go to the moon, because when we're at the moon, we can't use GPS anymore. We can't even use the magnetic field of the Earth anymore to navigate. So we're at the mercy of the stars that we see and the different features on the lunar landscape. And while that sounds hard to us, and it is definitely hard, indigenous explorers and hunters have been navigating from the stars and from landmarks for centuries. And so what we're doing is we're finding ways to overlap that indigenous knowledge with Western space systems engineering to find ways in which we can work together and take the union of those two different knowledge systems to find new ways to navigate in space. And that's one of the really challenging and really exciting parts of this, is that we'll be using navigation techniques that have never been used before. We've been demonstrating them on the ground so far with drones in partnership with indigenous communities. And now we're going to be engaging with those indigenous kids, the indigenous communities. They'll be helping us put together these navigation systems. And for the first time ever, we'll be demonstrating them in space around the moon, which I still can't believe it. Every time I say it, I get sort of goosebumps. But we're so excited.
Yeah, Phil, that is so cool. So what does this mean then moving forward, not only for the University of Manitoba, but also for Canada's role when it comes to space exploration?
Yeah, so I mean, Canada has always been leaders in space exploration. And I think what this is really doing is solidifying that. I mean, Canada, a lot of people don't know this, but the first thing that ever touched the surface of the moon when the Apollo lander landed on the moon was Canadian. Those were built in Canada. But we've never to date sent a satellite to orbit the moon before. And we've certainly never sent a little dart to the surface before. So that's a huge first. But I think what it really says is it solidifies us here in Manitoba as leaders in aerospace. We're a hub of aerospace development and research with Magellan Aerospace, with Boeing, with Standard Aero, and then, of course, the Price Faculty of Engineering and the Center for Earth Observation Science. We are all leaders in aerospace technology. And I think what especially puts us on the map there is our connections with the indigenous communities. And so this project is going to move Canada forward in space. It's going to put Manitoba on the front stage. And it's really going to show everybody in the world, and especially across Canada, that we're leaders, we can do this, and we can do it in partnership with communities. We're just so thrilled to be a part of it.
This is so cool, Phil, and I'm so glad that I got the chance to speak with you about it. We're going to have to follow up for sure when this actually happens. So thank you so much for joining me today here on the show.
All right. Thanks, Marjorie. Good to be here.
Take care.